Hey everyone! Tonight we dive into the extraordinary life of a woman whose existence was equal parts performance art, endurance test, and cultural enigma, largely misinterpreted by the Western world, the geisha. Before you settle in, hit that like button and subscribe, but only if you genuinely vibe with my content. Drop a comment about where you're watching from and your local time. It's fascinating to see our global audience. Now, dim those lights. Maybe crank up a fan for some ambient white noise, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Picture this. You're born in Edo-era Japan, the pulsing heart of the nation, teeming with tea houses, rice merchants, wandering monks, and at least four self-proclaimed reincarnated warlords per city block. As a girl, your destiny narrows to three thrilling historical options: marry some dullard, become a nun haunted by regret, or enter the Okiya geisha house to spend decades serving tea to drunk elites while pretending it's feminist empowerment. You're 6. Bugs still fascinate you, and you've got zero clue your parents have just decided you're becoming a geisha. Not today, though. Today, you're paraded through streets in an itchy, too-tight kimono, your carefree days of snacks and naps about to be traded for a masterclass in emotional suppression. The Okiya looms, part library, part temple, part emotionally stunted child. The woman at the door? Okayasan, the house mother. She sizes up your worth by how you bow. You attempt to smile. She doesn't. Your parents bow deeply, mutter formalities, and leave you behind like a politely negotiated hostage. You're not adopted. You're inventory. Don't worry. You'll learn to curtsy through the trauma. Now you're a shikomi, a fancy term for a child who scrubs things. Floors, baths, water buckets, all yours. Occasionally, you'll cry into your sleeve. Silently, obviously. Your job? Observe the geisha, never speak, and absorb everything by osmosis. You sleep in hallways, eat last, and owe the house for spilled rice. The geisha glide past like ethereal beings, sculpted hair, soundless steps, gazes that whisper, don't even breathe loudly. You're a sentient sponge in clunky sandals, but you're learning. If your knees survive, one day you might glide too. No one yelling, fetch the towels. Dawn to dysfunction, your days unfold. Sweeping tatami, stoking charcoal fires, washing kimonos worth more than your soul, and fetching, always fetching, slippers, water, tea, the other sandals. By noon, you've outwalked a samurai's annual march. Noise is forbidden. Shikomi must be silent as haunted houses. Speak only when spoken to. Respond promptly, but not too promptly, disrespectful. And never lock eyes with senior geisha unless they initiate, then it's too much. Even blinking feels politically charged. No formal classes here. Your education? Observation, humiliation, repetition. Learn to fold an obi by watching it done at light speed. Bow until your spine files a complaint. Fail your 15th tea pour without crying. Yet, somehow, you start decoding the subtleties. The fan's precise angle, laughter timed like drum beats. Walking is toe-in timing choreography. Being a geisha isn't just beauty. It's precision, control, and the social reflexes of a diplomat in a minefield. And still, you're just a shikomi. Invisible until useful, then invisible with a rag. The older girls might toss you kindness, or treat you like a cautionary tale. Either way, ears open, head down. Here's the secret. Every graceful geisha once scrubbed this floor while being scolded for drying chopsticks wrong. So endure. Wait, your time to matter will come. Now, having mastered tea carrying and self-erasure, it's upgrade time. Not dancing or music, don't get ahead of yourself. First, sit for hours without fidgeting or breathing too enthusiastically. Welcome to posture training, Japan's ancient tradition of turning knees into pretzels and spines into bamboo. Size a position, legs folded, back straight, circulation waving goodbye. At 3 minutes, your legs numb. At 10, they mutiny. But no squirming. Geisha endure pain like it's aesthetic. Bowing becomes your second language. Dozens of variations. Greeting bows, gratitude bows, please don't punish me bows. Master the exact head angle, the perfect pause, the rise smooth as rice paper unfurling. Mess up? Someone will scold you like a disappointed ghost. Tea ceremonies demand more seated agony. Move like you're underwater. Slow, fluid, deliberate. Sneeze? Congrats, you've dishonored your ancestors. Yet between cramps and silent screams, something shifts. Your posture straightens. Movements grow deliberate. Less child, more shadow. This is the revelation. Geisha training isn't theatrics, it's control. Over voice, body, how the world sees you. You're learning to vanish beautifully. After years of scrubbing, knee torture, and statue-worthy posture, the words finally come. You're ready to be a Maiko. Congrats. You've been promoted from ghost to ornamental human. The real suffering begins. First, the hair. Your scalp becomes a lacquered sculpture. Nihongami style. Towering, intricate, held by wax, pins, and prayers. One sneeze. Disaster. Sleep? Meet the takamakura, a wooden neck pillow ensuring your hair never touches anything, especially sanity. You'll adjust. Maybe. The outfit weighs a toddler. Kimono sleeves sweep gardens. The obi sash ties into a back knot weighing half your body. Dressing requires a team. Kanzashi hairpins. Beautiful, seasonal, sharp enough to qualify as weapons. One wrong pin equals fashion felony. As a Maiko, your job: observe, imitate, serve tea while dressed like a sentient cherry blossom. No loud laughs, free speech, or questions. You are art, not commentary. But despite the discomfort, the aching scalp, and the inability to sneeze near flames, you feel something else. You're not invisible anymore. People notice you. And not just because your outfit is visible from orbit. There's no single aha moment when you wake up thinking, yes, I'm now a proper apprentice geisha. It's more like a slow ceremonial promotion wrapped in silk, incense, and low-grade stress. But the official day you debut as a Maiko, that's different. That day comes with ceremony and pressure. Think of it as the Edo period version of a debutante ball, except instead of dancing and punch, there's kneeling, sweating, and at least 2 full hours of hair styling with hot wax. You've trained for years, bowed more than a religious statue, and memorized the complicated way to pour tea without looking like you're pouring tea. Now, finally, you get to show your face, painted white, of course, to Kyoto's elite. And they are judging you, politely, intensely, quietly, with folding fans. You wear your most elaborate kimono yet, layers of vibrant silk that cost more than your birth family's home. It's so long it drags behind you like a very expensive regret. Your obi is tied in the Darari style, a long trailing sash that screams, yes, I'm new here. Please admire my suffering. Your face is fully painted now. White rice powder from forehead to neck, red and black accents on your eyes. Lips painted in a perfect bow, though only the bottom lip at first, because apparently rookie elegance is a half-lip kind of thing. You walk through the streets in your okobo, those platform sandals that double as medieval torture devices, while everyone turns to stare. Not because you're famous, but because you're a newly minted Maiko, and it's a rare sight. Also, you're walking very, very slowly. It's the only speed available. Then comes your misadashi, your formal debut ceremony. You meet clients for the first time, greet patrons, and perform for elders who remember when their necks still worked. Every step, smile, and sip of tea is a test. And failure isn't punished with yelling. It's punished with disappointment, which is worse. But somehow you survive. You make it through the ritual, the performance, the parade. You don't trip, spill anything, or offend a dignitary. This, in geisha terms, is a massive win. And just like that, you're officially a Maiko. Half child, half porcelain icon, full-time performance piece. Being a Maiko comes with many responsibilities. Pouring tea, dancing, pretending not to hear creepy innuendos. But none of them compare to your most sacred daily ritual, the face. Your makeup routine is now a full-scale military operation. Step 1. Slather your face, neck, and chest in a thick coat of white rice powder, which smells like chalk, feels like glue, and somehow finds its way into your soul. It dries faster than your will to live and sets like plaster. Once it's on, you are no longer human. You are canvas. Step 2. Eyebrows. Yours? Gone. Covered in powder. New ones drawn on with charcoal. Thin, dark, and serious, like they have a secret. Step 3. Eyes. You trace your lids with a mixture of red and black pigment, carefully applied with a brush so thin it could paint on rice grains. One twitch and you've gone from elegant apprentice to haunted raccoon. And then the lips. As a junior Maiko, you're only allowed to paint the bottom lip. Why? Tradition. Also something vague about modesty and not getting too full of yourself. You paint it red, carefully shaped like a tiny bow. It's considered beautiful. It also makes eating look like a complicated art installation. Mistakes are not tolerated. Smudge your lip. Start over. Uneven eyeliner. Unacceptable. And remember, eyeliner doesn't even exist yet. You're using powdered minerals mixed with spit and despair. Once you're done, you look in the mirror and see something both ancient and terrifying. A doll. A glowing white, fragile, beautiful doll with the core strength of a dancer and the daily calorie intake of a squirrel. But here's the thing. Beneath the mask, you're learning power. This look commands attention. It says, I'm tradition wrapped in performance, and I will judge your clumsy chopstick technique. The makeup isn't for vanity. It's for armor. It separates you from ordinary women. It tells everyone that you're here to perform, not participate. It also tells your pores that they are no longer needed. Hope you weren't too attached to breathing through your skin. You don't wear this face for yourself. You wear it so others forget you're only 15 and start treating you like art. At first glance, you might think the geisha's greatest tools are her beauty, her kimono, or possibly the sharp metal hairpin she keeps purely for decorative purposes. But you'd be wrong. Her real weapons are twofold: the shamisen and the ancient Japanese art of making awkward men feel interesting. You learn the shamisen, a 3-stringed instrument that looks like a weaponized spatula and sounds like a melancholy banjo. Playing it requires grace, rhythm, and fingers that don't cramp like salted squid. You practice for hours daily, producing noises that begin as cat in distress and gradually evolve into respectable ambience. Your teachers are merciless. 1 missed note earns you a sigh. 2 missed notes earn you a raised eyebrow. 3 missed notes, and you're sent back to tune the instrument until it sounds less like a kitchen accident. But music is only half the equation. The other half? Conversation. You're not just learning how to talk. You're learning how to talk around things, how to flatter without lying, how to suggest without promising, how to keep a man engaged in dialogue while mentally organizing tomorrow's dance routine. You practice subtlety like it's a martial art. If a client mentions he's rich, you smile softly and change the topic to the moon. If he tries to flirt too boldly, you compliment his taste in sandals and offer more sake. You are the queen of graceful deflection. And oh, the poetry. You memorize hundreds of verses about flowers, rivers, and heartbreak. You can quote Basho while pouring tea and still notice who's had too much to drink, all while keeping your back straight and your voice 1 octave higher than your internal screaming. By now you've realized being a Maiko isn't about entertaining. It's about managing emotion, your own, your clients', the room's. You read moods faster than syllables. You know when to laugh, when to pause, and when to pretend you didn't hear something horrifying. This is your new life. Half musician, half therapist, all performance. And the scary part? You're getting good at it. Ah yes, the dana. The word sounds elegant, vaguely mysterious, and just polite enough to hide what it actually means. A wealthy male patron who supports your career with strings of obligation woven so tightly they could double as a noose. You hear about the concept early on. A dana, they say, is a respected man who appreciates the arts, funds your training, and helps with the extravagant costs of kimono, hair ornaments, and general survival. In return, you're expected to keep him company, make him feel important, and ideally not run screaming into the night. It's not romantic. This isn't a Jane Austen novel. This is a business transaction wearing a silk robe. You don't get to choose your dana. The house chooses. Your Okayasan weighs reputation, wealth, and social connections like a sommelier sniffing out aged insecurity. You, meanwhile, are told to smile and pretend the man in front of you, who is 40 years your senior and breathes like a tired ox, is fascinating. Now, to be clear, not every Dana expects certain favors. Some are genuine patrons who simply enjoy clever company. Others are not. The boundaries are vague, culturally unspoken, and the pressure is immense. You owe your house. You owe your future. You owe your knees, currently throbbing under 10 pounds of fabric. So you learn the art of emotional balancing. You keep things light, friendly, respectful. You become a master of making men feel adored while keeping your soul safely sealed behind a smile. If emotional labor were taxable, you'd bankrupt the shogunate. Sometimes it works out. A good Dana might sponsor you for years, shielding you from financial ruin while maintaining just enough distance. Other times, you develop the lifelong ability to dissociate in real time while nodding at grain tax stories. Either way, the system isn't about love. It's about leverage. And the only way to survive is to learn how to tilt the balance back in your favor, all while wearing 3 layers of brocade and pretending the room isn't on fire. One day, someone hands you a pair of shoes that look like small wooden buildings and says, "Put these on." They're called okobo, towering platform sandals made of solid wood with no right to exist. Designed not for comfort, but for ceremony, elegance, and possibly revenge. These sandals are worn exclusively by Maiko, which means if you're wearing them, you're now expected to float, not walk, across Kyoto's streets without wobbling, tripping, or bursting into tears. The okobo make you taller, statelier, less human. You no longer walk like a person, you glide like a shrine procession. The goal is to move with such grace that no one notices you're actually fighting for your life with every step. They have no cushioning. Of course they don't. This is Edo-era Japan. Your feet throb. Your calves scream. Your balance becomes a full-time job. God help you if it's raining. Slippery okobo on stone streets turn every tea house visit into an Olympic obstacle course. The sound they make, a sharp clop-clop, is deliberate. When a Maiko walks down the street, people know. That rhythmic click is your new soundtrack. It's beautiful. It's traditional. It also lets everyone within 5 blocks track your movements. Subtlety? Overrated. Eventually your legs adjust. Sort of. You develop ankle muscles you didn't know existed. You learn to fall with dignity. You perfect the art of turning corners slowly, gracefully, with just the right theatrical foot placement. And just when you think you've mastered it, someone adds a 12-pound obi to your waist and sends you to a client dinner with 3 flights of stairs. Wearing okobo is a rite of passage. It's also a public reminder that you're still an apprentice. Full geisha wear flatter shoes because they've earned the right to not suffer so visibly. You're still earning it, one stomp at a time. Let's clear something up right now. A geisha is an entertainer. You perform. You dance. You sing. You pour sake with elegance and flirtation so subtle it could pass for weather commentary. You are a walking work of art whose power lies in restraint. You say just enough, reveal just enough, exist in the sacred space between admiration and distance. A courtesan or oiran. That's a high-class companion trained in the art of pleasure. Their job involves layers of performance too, but with one distinct difference. There's usually ends in a bedroom. Yours ends with applause, a bow, and sore feet. The visual confusion doesn't help. Both wear elaborate kimonos. Both sport ornate hairstyles. But here's your cheat sheet. If the obi is tied in the front, she's a courtesan, quick access. If it's tied in the back, she's a geisha, slow exit. You're welcome. But none of that matters when you're in a room full of men who watched one bad movie and think geisha is code for exotic invitation. So you develop a skill. The art of politely correcting someone while making them feel like they taught you something. It's linguistic aikido. You say things like, "Ah, how kind of you to be curious." Our traditions are quite different from that. Smile, sip, redirect, repeat. You'll give this same explanation 100 times in your career. It will never stop being necessary. But each time you do it with grace, you reassert the boundary, one smooth sentence at a time. Because being a geisha means never losing your cool, even when someone mistakes you for something you're not. As a Maiko, and eventually a geisha, you're expected to master music, dance, etiquette, and the delicate skill of looking delighted while listening to a man talk about rice tariffs for 2 hours. But your most useful and least taught skill? Saying no without ever using the word no. See, you can't just reject someone outright. That would be rude. And worse, ungraceful. No one pays a geisha to be blunt. Your value lies in subtlety, in suggestion, in the ability to pivot away from a proposition like a butterfly and get his sandals. Let's say a client gets bold. Maybe he leans in too close, compliments your eyes too often, or drops the classic, perhaps we could meet somewhere more private. You don't slap him. You don't shout. That's amateur hour. Instead, you smile, tilt your head, and say something like, "Ah, you must be very popular with women." This sentence has exactly zero substance, but it flatters him, redirects the conversation, and buys you 10 seconds to refill his cup and pretend that never happened. Another classic. "Oh, what a shame. I'm terribly busy that day." This works even when he hasn't specified a day. You are always terribly busy, because a geisha's schedule is a mystery wrapped in silk and plausible deniability. Or you deploy the old standard, laughter. Just a soft, amused chuckle followed by a gentle head shake and immediate subject change. It's a dance, one where you lead and they never quite realize it. Over time, you become fluent in the language of deflection. You can reject someone 3 times in a row while making them feel like the guest of honor. It's exhausting, yes, but it's an art form passed down from woman to woman like a secret spell book written in fan movements and passive-aggressive grace. Because here's the truth. A geisha's job isn't to indulge desire. It's to manage it, to channel it, to make the room feel magical while keeping both hands on the wheel. And if all else fails, smile, bow, and say, "Such an interesting thought." That usually does the trick. The okiya may look serene. Paper walls, soft lighting, the gentle strum of shamisen floating through the air. But don't be fooled. It's a battlefield, not one with swords or shouting. No, geisha wars are quieter, sharper, like being slowly assassinated with compliments. Every geisha house is a carefully managed ecosystem, and within it lives a secret jungle of hierarchy, rivalry, and petty vengeance served in silk. You're surrounded by women who are smart, competitive, and trained to smile through open warfare. Did someone borrow your obi without asking? Oh, how thoughtful. Did another maiko arrive to dinner with the same seasonal hairpin? What a coincidence. Did your shamisen solo suddenly get reassigned to someone else last minute? Just a misunderstanding, the kind that somehow always benefits the more popular girl. You learn quickly, not all smiles are kind. Not all compliments are real. And never, never leave your cosmetics unattended. There's a code, of course. You don't scream or slap. That's for the untrained. Here, revenge is served with poise. One extra syllable in a haiku. One accidental nudge during dance practice. A subtle whisper to a client that maybe, just maybe, you heard something interesting about that other maiko's behavior at the last tea ceremony. Rumors in the okiya spread faster than fire on a paper lantern. You try to stay above it, of course, but eventually you'll get pulled in. Maybe you're the new favorite. Maybe your dance was too good. Maybe someone's just in a mood, and suddenly your sandals are missing. Coincidence? You survive by learning to be gracious, strategically. You master the art of complimenting someone while implying the opposite. Your new kimono is so bold. I could never wear something so daring. Eventually, you'll rise above it, literally. As a full geisha, you'll outrank the apprentices, get your own room, your own clients, and fewer accidental spills on your outfit. But until then, welcome to fan wars. They're silent, they're ruthless, and they're fought with grace, timing, and an occasional well-placed eyebrow raise. You don't need armor here. You need a mirror, a memory, and the ability to say thank you like it's a warning. After years of kneeling, bowing, smiling, and resisting the urge to scream into your obi, the day arrives. You are no longer a maiko. You are now a geisha. The transformation is subtle, no dramatic parade, no congratulatory fireworks. You simply wake up one day and instead of being the girl in training, you are the standard everyone else is training toward. And weirdly, Your knees still hurt. Your wardrobe changes. Gone are the vividly colored, high-sleeved maiko kimonos that made you look like a walking flower arrangement. Your new look is more subdued, more elegant, like you've finally earned the right to dress like someone with opinions. The sleeves are shorter, the patterns more refined. You trade the Darari Obi's flamboyant cascade for a tighter, more mature knot. Your hair, thank the gods, is no longer a weekly sculpture made from wax and willpower. You now wear a wig. Yes, a wig. It's heavier than your head and still takes half a salon to style, but at least you can sleep like a normal human again, which is to say, poorly and on a futon. The white makeup now covers only your face and neck, leaving your nape provocatively bare, a subtle but powerful signal of your new status. But the biggest shift? You now perform alone. You don't follow anymore, you lead. You're expected to host, entertain, and charm without assistance. Your shamisen solos are longer. Your conversations are wittier. Your dance movements have transitioned from the exuberant, almost childish style of the maiko to something more restrained and sophisticated. You must be calm, poised, and above all, in control. Clients no longer see you as cute. They see you as powerful, not in a sword-wielding, castle-burning way, but in the way that a single raised eyebrow can derail an entire conversation. You've mastered subtlety. You've weaponized grace. People listen when you speak, or rather, when you choose to speak, because geisha know the true art of power, silence, used sparingly. With this new status comes new burdens. You must mentor the younger maiko. You must smile at clients you've already smiled at 1,000 times. You must carry the weight of legacy, of expectation, of thousands of years of cultural performance. The house still takes its cut. The debts still need paying. But now, at least, the terms are yours to negotiate. Yet deep down, something's different now. You're no longer pretending. You've become the person the Okiya sculpted you into. Not just a woman in a kimono, but a living symbol of refinement, mystery, and perfectly calculated emotional labor. When you enter a room, the atmosphere shifts. When you laugh, others laugh louder. When you're silent, the room holds its breath. You are no longer in training. You are the tradition. So you've survived. You've danced, poured tea, smiled through centuries of tradition, and avoided tripping in Okobo long enough to reach the unspoken chapter in every geisha story. What now? Because here's the secret no one tells you. Geisha don't really retire. Not in the traditional sense. There's no ceremony where someone hands you a gold fan and a thank you note. You don't get a pension. You just gradually fade from the spotlight like a candle burned all the way down. Some geisha transition into teachers. You become the one correcting someone's bow angle with a single look. You demonstrate the shamisen for the 100th time, knowing full well the maiko in front of you is thinking about lunch. You've become the legacy, the living proof that grace ages well and outlives fashion. Others become house mothers. The Okiya-san. Yes, her. The woman who once judged your bow like it was a criminal offense. And now it's you standing by the sliding door, inspecting the new shikomi with the expression of someone wondering if the rice pot is burning. You run the house. You make the rules. And you decide who rises and who cleans the entryway again until they learn how to walk without sounding like a stampede. Some geisha marry, discreetly, strategically, maybe even to a former Dana who's still breathing and has the good manners not to ask what everything costs. You trade one form of performance for another, the art of smiling through domesticity. But many geisha simply continue, slower, quieter, but still sharp. You host more intimate gatherings. You become less about performance and more about presence. You say less, but it means more. Your nod can shift the tone of a room. Your absence becomes noticeable. There's no grand exit, no final curtain call. You just shift into shadow, still wrapped in silk, still moving like a poem with ankles. And even when your public appearances grow rare, your name stays, passed on by younger geisha who still practice the gestures you perfected long ago. By now your knees are permanently shaped like tatami mats. Your back straightens on instinct. Your voice, always melodic, holds weight not because it's loud, but because it rarely needs to be. You are no longer just a geisha. Your memory made visible. You won't find your name carved in stone or printed in textbooks. You won't trend. There's no viral clip of you pouring tea with surgical elegance or reciting waka poetry between shamisen chords. But your legacy isn't the kind that needs volume. It lives in the next girl, kneeling too long on aching legs, trying not to smudge her lip paint as she perfects that half smile that hides exhaustion and radiates charm. It lives in the way the fan opens, crisp, precise, and silent, a gesture older than most empires. It lives in the quiet spaces between words at a party, where your presence still shifts the atmosphere even if no one remembers your debut date or which client bought your first seasonal comb. Your job was never to be loud. It was to be unforgettable in ways most people wouldn't know how to explain, to captivate, not seduce, to suggest, not declare, to turn a dinner into a ceremony and a glance into a statement. And through it all, you survived. You survived the training, the weight of tradition, the shoes that tried to kill you. You survived assumptions, competition, the clients who mistook performance for permission, and the rumors that never seemed to fade as fast as they were invented. But most of all, you survived elegantly. In a world that demanded perfection and silence, you created space for self-possession. You carved out a life that was both performance and resistance, all while never raising your voice. And maybe no one will say your name out loud when they tell the story of Kyoto, but someone will sip tea just so. Someone will walk in kimono without rustling. Someone will smile with an unreadable gaze and say just enough and not a word more. And in that moment, you'll still be there, not as a ghost, but as legacy. In the refined world of Kyoto's flower and willow district, the art of matchmaking bore no resemblance to Western notions of romance. A geisha's marriage prospects were never about stolen glances or whispered sweet nothings. They were strategic alliances woven with the same precision as an obi knot. When a geisha considered marriage, the process began not with courtship, but with careful calculation. The tea house mothers, those shrewd architects of social connections, would assess potential matches with the clinical detachment of chess players. A merchant's financial stability mattered more than his smile. A samurai's lineage outweighed his poetry skills. And always, the question lingered. How would this union affect her standing in the hanamachi? The contracts were exhaustive. Unlike the Sumerian clay tablets of old, these were brushed onto delicate washi paper with ink that shimmered like crushed pearls. Dowries weren't measured in livestock, but in cultural capital. A collection of rare shamisen scores might be worth more than farmland, a set of heirloom hair ornaments more valuable than gold. Every kimono, every tea ceremony implement was cataloged with notarial precision. Yet for all the paperwork, certain traditions defied documentation. There was the matter of the third-year chrysanthemum test, where a prospective groom's character was judged by how he interacted with Maikos during their most awkward phase of training. Could he appreciate the artistry behind an imperfect tea pour? Would he recognize the potential in a slightly off-key Nagata performance? These were the true measures of a man's worth. Divorce existed, of course, but carried consequences unseen in other societies. A geisha who left her marriage might regain her personal freedom, but she could never reclaim her professional name. The hanamachi had long memories, and a woman who broke contract might find herself exiled from certain tea houses, her former clients suddenly preoccupied when she called. The wedding itself was a masterpiece of controlled symbolism. Unlike the Western white gown tradition, a geisha bride wore layers of auspicious red silk, each fold representing a different promise to her new life. The ceremony's highlight came when she served tea to her husband's ancestors, a silent performance more demanding than any stage appearance. One improperly measured scoop of matcha could haunt a marriage for years. Children complicated matters beautifully. A geisha mother raised daughters to understand the weight of hairpins and the language of folding fans, while sons were taught to appreciate the arts without becoming distracted by them. The smartest husbands knew better than to interfere with this education. After all, who better to cultivate the next generation of connoisseurs than the women who defined elegance itself? In the end, These marriages succeeded or failed by the same metrics as everything in the flower and willow world, not on passion, but on mutual understanding of unspoken rules. The best unions were like perfectly executed tea ceremonies, each movement calculated, each silence meaningful, and the beauty lying not in any single element, but in the harmonious balance of them all. The turning of seasons in Kyoto's hanamachi was not marked by calendars, but by the subtle shifts in a geisha's wardrobe. As autumn leaves began their crimson dance along the Kamo River, the Maiko's kimonos would transition from summer's light shiraman silk to heavier rinzu fabrics woven with seasonal motifs, chrysanthemums for longevity, maple leaves for transformation. This was no mere fashion change. It was a language written in threads, each pattern a carefully curated poem about the passage of time. Okayasin kept the seasonal wardrobe rotations with military precision. The storehouse where hundreds of kimonos were preserved in camphor-scented darkness functioned like a living museum of textile art. A senior geisha could identify the year and occasion of each garment's debut simply by running her fingers along the obi's inner stitching. This one was worn by third sister during the Gion Festival drought of 1892, she might remark, as if reading braille woven into the silk. The process of dressing became increasingly complex with rank. Whereas shikomi might wear 3 layers, a senior geisha's formal ensemble could comprise 12 distinct garments, each serving both aesthetic and symbolic purposes. The Haido underrobe's pale blue lining was deliberately visible at the collar, not for contrast, but to suggest the first frost of November. The uchicake overcoat's embroidered cranes weren't just decorative. Their wing positions indicated whether the wearer was available for private engagements. Seasonal changes also dictated the geisha's beauty rituals. Summer called for lighter makeup with cucumber-infused powder to combat shine, while winter demanded thicker applications mixed with camellia oil to prevent cracking. The Maiko's Kanzashi hairpins followed an intricate floral calendar: willow for March, hydrangea for June, chrysanthemum for September. Each change performed during the monthly moon viewing ceremonies where senior sisters would demonstrate proper seasonal etiquette. Even the tea house's interiors transformed. Summer saw bamboo blinds and glass wind chimes installed to create the illusion of coolness, while winter brought out heavy tsamuji cotton drapes and charcoal braziers positioned precisely where their heat would warp neither the instruments nor the sake. The most exclusive establishments maintained separate seasonal tea caddies, the summer set featuring marine motifs, the winter collection adorned with lucky badgers and snow rabbits. The culinary arts followed suit. Kaiseki meals served to patrons during seasonal transitions were edible haiku. A single maple leaf-shaped wagashi confection could represent both farewell to summer and anticipation of autumn. Geisha trained for years to master the art of serving these dishes with appropriate seasonal references. Pouring sake while casually mentioning how the persimmons on the riverbank had just turned orange wasn't small talk, it was performance. This relentless seasonal awareness served a deeper purpose. In a world where geisha were often perceived as decorative objects, the mastery of seasonal codes became proof of intellectual depth. When a Maiko correctly identified the first songbird of spring by its call during a tea ceremony, or when a senior geisha adjusted her shamisen tuning to reflect the day's humidity, they demonstrated cultural literacy no wealthy patron could purchase. By the Meiji era, this seasonal consciousness had evolved into a precise science. Specialized almanacs were published for the flower districts, detailing exactly which day to switch from plum blossom motifs to cherry blossom patterns. Veteran geisha could detect micro-seasonal shifts the way sailors sense changing winds. The particular way morning mist clung to Gion's lanterns in late September signaled it was time to retire the summer hair ornaments, regardless what the calendar said. The true test came during unseasonable weather, when cherry blossoms bloomed too early or winter lingered too long. The geisha's ability to improvise while maintaining proper form separated the competent from the extraordinary. A legendary tale tells of a Maiko who, caught in sudden November snow during an outdoor performance, improvised a dance incorporating snowflake-catching motions that became standard repertoire for decades after. These seasonal rituals weren't mere traditions. They were the invisible threads weaving together the fabric of geisha culture. To outsiders, it might appear as obsessive attention to detail, but for those living the tradition, it was the very rhythm of existence. When a retired geisha decades later smelled the particular aroma of first-rain petrichor on Kyoto's cobblestones, her hands would instinctively move to adjust an obi that was no longer there, her body remembering what her mind could never forget. The moon viewing banquet at Ichiriki Tea House represented the pinnacle of a geisha's seasonal artistry. For 3 nights each September, the most exclusive patrons would gather in the willow-lined courtyard to witness a spectacle where every element, from the arrangement of pampas grass to the angle of the sake cups, was calibrated to honor the harvest moon. Preparations began at dawn on the first day. Senior Maikos knelt on tatami dampened with morning dew, carefully positioning hundreds of white chrysanthemums in bronze basins to create the illusion of moonlight reflecting on water. Their fingers moved with surgical precision. Each stem had to be cut at a 45-degree angle to prevent premature wilting, each blossom spaced exactly 2 finger widths apart. A single misaligned flower could disrupt the entire composition's balance. The geishas dance that evening would incorporate elements rarely seen elsewhere. The tsukimi dance required performers to hold a brass mirror in their left hand while manipulating a folding fan with their right, creating the illusion of capturing moonlight. The most challenging sequence involved spinning 3 times counterclockwise while maintaining perfect mirror alignment, a move that took most Maikos 2 years to master without becoming dizzy. Music for the occasion followed strict conventions. The shamisen players used special silk strings that produced a more resonant tone in cool autumn air, while the singers adjusted their vocal techniques to compensate for the courtyard's acoustics. A verse sung too forcefully might scare away the symbolic moon rabbits said to visit during the festival. The accompanying koto zither were retuned using a moon scale that incorporated microtones found only in this seasonal repertoire. Even the food service became performance art. Sake was poured from silver flasks into cups designed to cast rabbit-shaped shadows when filled to precisely 70% capacity. The wagashi confections, shaped like full moons, contained a single sweet bean paste center meant to represent the lunar crater Tycho. Breaking the confection prematurely was considered terrible luck. It had to be eaten in exactly 5 bites, each corresponding to a phase of the moon. The second night brought more elaborate rituals. At midnight, senior geishas would lead a procession to the nearby Shirakawa Canal, carrying paper lanterns painted with constellations. There, they performed the Mizukagami ceremony, floating mirrors on the water's surface to capture the moon's reflection. The positioning of these mirrors followed ancient astrological charts, with each geisha responsible for maintaining her mirror's angle despite the current's pull. By the 3rd evening, the celebration reached its crescendo with the Tsukumagami dance. This unusual performance involved geishas wearing masks representing various household objects said to come alive on the year's most moonlit night. The choreography blended comic elements with technical brilliance. One section required dancers to mimic spinning pottery wheels while simultaneously playing small drums tied to their waists. The true mastery came in the transitions between these set pieces. A geisha might need to shift from the solemn tsukimi reverence to the playful tsukumagami antics within moments, all while adjusting her makeup to reflect the changing moonlight. The most skilled performers kept 3 separate makeup palettes tucked in their sleeves: pearl white for early evening, silver gray for midnight, and pale blue for dawn's approach. These moon banquets served a deeper purpose beyond entertainment. The rigorous training required prepared geishas for the year's most demanding engagements. A Maiko who could maintain her composure during the mirror spinning sequence would have no trouble handling unexpected tea ceremonies or difficult clients. The precision required in timing the 5 confection bites translated directly to the measured pacing needed when entertaining powerful politicians. For patrons, the event offered rare glimpses behind the geisha's carefully constructed elegance. Watching a usually poised geisha laugh behind her fox mask during the tsukumagami dance, or seeing the concentration in her eyes while balancing the water mirror, created moments of authentic connection no formal tea ceremony could match. The smartest clients understood this. The businessmen who paid triple rates for moon banquet reservations weren't just buying spectacle, they were purchasing privileged access to vulnerability. When dawn finally broke on the third day, the exhausted but exhilarated geishas would gather in the tea house's inner chamber for a private ritual. Each would drink a cup of specially prepared chrysanthemum tea while viewing the actual moon's reflection in a sacred bronze mirror passed down through generations. This quiet moment, unseen by any patrons, represented the tradition's heart, the sacred contract between artist, art form, and the natural world that made their artistry possible. The moon might fade, the lanterns might be packed away, but the lessons remained. A geisha who had survived 3 nights of moon viewing could face anything, from an overeager admirer to an economic depression, with the same grace she employed keeping that damned mirror steady during the spinning sequence. The art of the geisha's fan was no mere accessory choice. It was a doctoral thesis in nonverbal communication. Every flick, every measured opening, every deliberate snap carried layers of meaning refined through centuries of practice. A senior geisha could conduct an entire conversation without uttering a word, her fan moving with the precision of a conductor's baton orchestrating social dynamics. New Maikos began their fan training with deceptively simple exercises. The first lesson, how to properly hold a closed fan while walking. The correct position, parallel to the ground, 3 fingers beneath the ribs, prevented the fan from becoming a clumsy protrusion while maintaining readiness for instant deployment. A single misaligned finger would earn a sharp rap across the knuckles from the dance instructor's own fan. The basic positions had ominous names befitting their importance. Moonrise involved unfolding the fan to exactly 45 degrees to signal polite interest. Willow branch required holding the fully opened fan at a precise downward angle when serving tea. Too steep and it blocked the guest's view. Too shallow and it appeared careless. The most feared position was storm gate, where the fan snapped shut with a sound like breaking bamboo, used exclusively to punctuate the climax of dramatic stories. Advanced techniques bordered on magical realism. A true master could make cherry blossom petals appear to fall from her fan during spring dances by concealing paper cuttings in the ribs. The legendary floating world technique involved balancing an open fan on one finger while pouring sake with the other hand, a feat requiring such precise wrist control that practitioners developed permanent calluses along their thumb joints. Different fan types served specialized purposes. The Chukei fan's heavier paper made ideal accompaniment for epic tales, its deep resonance underscoring battle scenes. Delicate Hyogi fans painted with seasonal motifs became living illustrations during poetry recitals. Most prized were the secret night fans, black lacquered ribs with reversible silk leaves, one side for formal occasions, the other bearing suggestive designs for intimate gatherings. The fan's language extended beyond performance. During tea ceremonies, how a geisha placed her fan on the tatame signaled her availability. Parallel to the guest meant open to conversation. Perpendicular indicated professional distance. A fan left partially unfolded beside an empty sake cup was the equivalent of a modern out-of-office notice. Training accidents were common. Maikos frequently returned from lessons with bruised fingertips from catching folding fans improperly, or reddened cheeks from practicing whisper technique, using the fan to conceal speech while projecting voice across rooms. The worst mishaps involved the heavy metal-ribbed fans used for New Year's performances, which could draw blood when snapped too vigorously. By graduation to senior status, a geisha's fan became an extension of her personality. Some developed signature flourishes. The renowned Ikamaru of Pontocho could make her fan spin on its axis like a wheel before catching it midair. Others used theirs as memory aids, subtly marking the ribs to remember complex drink orders during banquets. The fan's ultimate test came during unexpected situations. When a drunk patron became belligerent, a well-timed fan snap could redirect attention without confrontation. During power outages, geishas would arrange their open fans behind candle flames to create dramatic shadow plays. One famous anecdote tells of a quick-thinking Maiko who used her fan to deflect a falling lantern during Gion Festival, saving both the antique silk shade and her client's expensive Haori coat. In the tea house hierarchy, fan skills determined seating arrangements. The most adept sat nearest important guests, their fans working overtime to smooth conversational lulls. Novices were relegated to corners where their clumsy handling wouldn't cause offense. An experienced geisha could assess a rival's training level within minutes by observing how she handled her fan during the first sake pour. The fan's significance extended beyond life itself. Retired geishas often willed their favorite fans to favored pupils, the transfer ceremony involving precise rituals. The fan would be presented in a paulownia wood box, open to exactly 90 degrees to represent the circle of tradition. The recipient had to accept it with both hands while performing the morning mist gesture, fan tips touching forehead in reverence. During funerals, a deceased geisha's fans would be burned in a special ceremony, the ashes collected in porcelain jars painted with her crest. It was said the way the smoke curled upward predicted the fate of her disciples. Straight columns meant continued success, while scattered ashes warned of coming hardships. Modernization threatened these traditions. Cheap plastic fans from China flooded markets in the Taisho era, forcing Kyoto's fan makers to innovate. The solution? Collapsible steel-ribbed fans that could withstand rain during outdoor performances, and later, UV-resistant synthetic papers that wouldn't fade under stage lights. Yet, even today, when a Maiko purchases her first real fan, always from one of the 5 licensed shops in Gion, she participates in a ritual unchanged since Edo period. The fan maker measures her hand span to determine ideal length, tests her grip strength to select rib material, and observes her posture to calculate optimal weight. What emerges weeks later isn't just a tool, but a bespoke instrument as personal as a fingerprint. When an earthquake damaged Kyoto in 2018, the first things senior geishas rescued weren't jewels or cash, but antique fan collections dating back generations. As they waited in evacuation centers, these women could be seen practicing basic fan forms, not for show, but because the motions grounded them in tradition when the world shook. The fan's final lesson? That true communication often happens in the spaces between words, in the whisper of paper sliding against silk, in the momentary shadow cast across a client's face. A geisha's fan might open and close hundreds of times in an evening, but its most important movement is the invisible one, when it teaches the hand to speak without sound. The final transformation came not with ceremony, but with the quiet accumulation of years. A geisha's retirement was never abrupt. It was a gradual fading, like the last streaks of sunset over Yasaka Shrine's rooftops. There came a day when the white makeup no longer sat smoothly on laugh lines, when the shamisen strings felt heavier in arthritic fingers, when the prospect of another midnight banquet made bones ache in anticipation. The process began with small concessions. First, she might decline the most physically demanding dances, then reduce her tea house appearances from 6 nights a week to 3. The Okasan would tactfully stop assigning her to rowdy businessmen's parties, reserving her instead for the refined tea ceremonies where her decades of experience shone brightest. Clients who had known her since her Maiko days would request her specifically for nostalgic gatherings, where she could tell stories of old Kyoto between pours of premium sake. Her wardrobe changed imperceptibly. The vibrant pinks and reds of her Maiko years gave way to more subdued hues, muted greens, elegant grays, the occasional dignified purple. The heavy, elaborate wigs were replaced with simpler styles that didn't strain the neck. Only her obi remained as meticulously tied as ever, though now by assistant's hands rather than her own. The knowledge transfer became her primary role. In the mornings, she could be found in the Okia's practice room, demonstrating fan techniques to wide-eyed Maikos. Her corrections were gentler than those she'd received. The fan isn't a weapon, child delivered with an amused smile rather than a sharp rap on the knuckles. She took special care teaching the art of seasonal awareness, showing how to detect the first autumn chill in the way spiderwebs caught the morning dew. Her relationships with longtime patrons evolved into something resembling friendship. The wealthy businessman who'd once been too nervous to meet her eyes now consulted her on everything from marriage proposals to stock investments. She became keeper of secrets for generations, knowing which politician's son was actually his nephew, which famous actress had started as a Gion shop girl, which banking family's fortune traced back to black market rice during the war years. The physical space around her shifted too. Where once she'd occupied the Okia's best room, she now preferred a smaller chamber near the garden. The tatami bore permanent impressions from decades of sitting in perfect saiza. Her personal altar accumulated offerings, a porcelain doll from her first dana, a faded photograph of her dance teacher, a cracked tea bowl that had survived the 1923 earthquake. Younger geishas sought her counsel on matters beyond art. She mediated disputes with the subtlety of a UN diplomat, knowing when to invoke tradition and when to suggest modern compromise. Her advice on handling troublesome patrons became legendary. When the crab crawls sideways, don't chase it head-on, was code for deflecting inappropriate advances with strategic humor. The hanamachi's rhythms continued without her at center stage. New stars rose, fashion trends shifted, even the tea houses renovated. Yet her presence remained woven through it all, in the way certain dances were still performed, in the particular blend of tea served at anniversary parties, in the lingering habit of touching one's fan to the forehead before important performances. When she finally made the decision to retire completely, there were no announcements. She simply stopped appearing at engagements, though regulars might notice her sitting discreetly in the back during major festivals. Her last public act was often gifting her favorite kimono to a promising maiko, not the most expensive one, but the garment that held the most memories. The transfer ceremony was simple. The young woman would bow deeply, the elder would adjust the collar one final time, and that was all. In retirement, her days took on new rhythms. Mornings might find her at Shimagamo's shrine, offering prayers not for success, but for the continued prosperity of the hanamachi. Afternoons were for mentoring select students in her home, where the lessons now included life advice alongside artistic technique. Evenings often saw her hosting intimate gatherings for former colleagues, where the sake flowed freely and stories grew taller with each retelling. The physical reminders of her career slowly dispersed. Her wigs went to the Okia's collection, her instruments to promising students, her extensive kimono collection carefully divided between museums and former rivals' daughters. Only her first maiko hairpin remained always with her, kept in a lacquer box by the bed, a tangible connection to the girl she'd once been. Yet in quiet moments, the training surfaced unbidden. When arranging flowers, her hands automatically assumed the correct grip for fan holding. The scent of certain incense could make her hum long-forgotten banquet songs. And on humid summer nights, she sometimes woke to find her feet moving through dance patterns on the tatami, her body remembering what her conscious mind had released. The greatest surprise was how ordinary life felt afterward. The world beyond the hanamachi, which had once seemed so intimidating, revealed its own simple pleasures. Shopping for groceries without makeup, traveling without scheduling performances, laughing loudly without calculating the effect. She discovered that after a lifetime of being looked at, there was profound relief in being unseen. Yet when the Gion festival drums sounded each July, something primal stirred. Her posture would straighten, her breathing deepen, and for a fleeting moment, she was back in the spotlight, not as an aging artist, but as the embodiment of a tradition that had chosen her as much as she'd chosen it. Then the drums would fade, and she'd smile at the memory, adjusting the sleeves of her ordinary kimono before continuing down the street. Just another Kyoto grandmother carrying groceries home. The final truth she came to understand was this: one never truly stopped being a geisha. The training, the discipline, the artistry, these became bone knowledge, as intrinsic as heartbeat or breath. Retirement wasn't an ending, but a transformation into a new role, living archive of a vanishing world, quiet guardian of its secrets, and most of all, witness to the enduring beauty she'd helped preserve. When tourists asked if she missed the glamour, she'd simply smile and change the subject, an old geisha trick still serving her well. The answer, of course, was both yes and no. She missed the silk and the spotlight, but not the sore knees. She missed the music, but not the politics. What she truly cherished remained. The knowledge that somewhere in Guyane, a new generation of girls were learning to pour tea just so, their movements echoing hers across the decades, their fans opening like wings in the golden light of tea house lanterns.